Hey everyone, this is Cardlin. I've got another build video. This is actually an update of a previous build that I made 5 or 6 months ago from, it was either Stonethorn or Markarth or both. But this is for our Magicka Warden, as it says in the title, for the Blackwood update. Now, this is going to be a no CP build. Even though on the PTS right now we have 3,600 champion points, I have not spent any of those. Not even here. Anyway. So, it is a non-CP setup. I'm currently in Imperial City, so I don't get any of the Cyrodiil buffs, which I think I checked last night. We did have some active in that campaign on the PTS. But anyway, this is a Breton. All kinds of races I think would work for this, but probably the best three would be Breton, Dark Elf, and High Elf. But there's others that would certainly work. Argonian would probably be fine. And a lot of others are viable. The only ones I would avoid are things like Bosmer, which is very stamina focused. Now, if we do change race, though, we do have to tinker with sustain and everything else. 64 points in the Magicka. I'm also using the Atronach Mundus, and my food wore off. And we're also using Sugar Skulls for food. That gives us a nice stamina pool, over 18k. It'll give us plenty of stamina to break free and occasionally block or roll dodge a big burst, if we can anticipate it properly. Running almost 1800 Magicka recovery, although we can buff that up a bit with Major and Minor Intellect, which we have access to in this build. Magicka is not terribly impressive, actually. 29k is not impressive at all. And our health, once we get Minor Toughness, will be about the same as the Magicka, 29k. In fact, let me go ahead and buff up here. Yeah, so we get about 29k of each. Our spell damage jumps up over 3.1k. And our armor is now almost 29k spell resist and almost 24k physical resist. So solid. Critical resist could be better. But for non-CP it's not terrible. And we are running a critical riposte 2-piece back bar, so that should jump it up to weapon swap here. That'll jump us up to 2240 on the back bar. Anyway, so let's look at gear. You can see right off we're using Valkynscoria helm. This is heavy piece and reinforced for the extra resistances. We're also using very clearly Malakath, as you can see from the icon there. I am using infused with Magicka recovery right now. This build does require some testing still. I'm fairly confident it'll stay close to what it is now. But, I mean, if it turns out we're over-sustaining, then I might be able to swap that for a damage enchant. And either change the spell damage enchant here to recovery, or just outright change this to damage and leave it like that. Although that's a big hit to recovery. That drops us down to a little over 1500. Or probably a little bit below with our light armor passes. Anyway, so I don't know if we want to drop down that far. Anyway, but yeah, we very clearly can see as a Valkynscoria piece and a Malakath piece. The Valkynscoria I'm using for the penetration, of course. Could use an armor buff there, like one-piece pirate skeleton. We could even do Domi House for the double stat bonus, or Magicka for the spell damage bonus and weapon damage bonus. So either way, as you saw, one of the 5-piece sets I'm using is Torag's Pact. Torag's Pact is 2 lines of armor, maximum health, and then decreases weapon enchantment cooldown by 33% and increases non-oblivion damage weapon enchantment potency by 45%. The second 5-piece set I'm using is Heartland Conqueror. I think it synergizes nicely with Torag's Pact. This gives weapon and spell damage, gives us Magicka and stamina, but main thing we're looking at here is it increases the effectiveness of our weapon traits by 100%, other than, of course, ornate or intricate, which we wouldn't be using in combat anyway, just to cheese mechanics. Luckily, they thought ahead of the time to omit those. Now, by the way, we are using 4 light, 1 medium, and 2 heavy. That way we get the full Undaunted passive. And we have 4 light for the penetration passive. I put health glyphs and reinforced on the heavy and medium pieces, and Magicka glyphs and impenetrable on the smaller piece, the other 4 small pieces. For the weapons, this is where we really see the Heartland Conqueror and Torag's Pact shine. And we have an Inferno staff of Torag's Pact. We have to use Inferno because one of the things that's not in Warden Toolkit is a CC, or at least a good one. So of course we are going to be using Flame Clench. But one thing we see, and I've put a Frost enchant here because Wardens do get plus 10% Frost damage. So I think that's the biggest enchant we can get on this build. It might be nice to use Disease, just for the minor defile, but right now I'm just maxing out damage. That's the current theory. Now, Torag's Pact, we can see the 5-piece there, decreases the cooldown and increases the damage. And then Heartland Conqueror increases the effectiveness of the weapon trait. Now the weapon trait is infused, which also, just like Torag's Pact, increases the weapon enchantment effect and reduces the cooldown. So we've boosted the damage up to 8400, as you can see. And the cooldown, I was testing on a target dummy, is about 1 second. A little bit, 1 second or slightly more. So basically we get higher tooltip on our enchantment, and we can use it more quickly. So it's like buffing it from 2 directions at once. This is really nice. If we're light attack weaving properly, we'll be getting this to proc consistently. And our spammable is a weapon ability, and so that if it doesn't proc off the light attack, then we'll get it off the weapon ability, and it'll just be amazing. The other reason we use Frostglyph here, not just because Warden has a passive that buffs frost damage, I think we have another passive that increases our chance to apply the chilled status effect, which oh, Winter's Embrace abilities. Okay, that was less impressive than I thought it would be. Okay, sorry about that. Either way, if we can apply a chilled with that, then we'll get some other nice things happening. Like I said, backbarred, we are using Critical Riposte, but look at this. It's a powered Resto Staff. Powered, it is being affected by the Heartland Conqueror, so instead of being 9% extra healing, it's actually 18% extra healing, which is fairly significant, I feel like. I feel like that's a big boost in healing on a Resto Staff where we can easily heavy attack to get major mending, or as a Warden, where we could also get major mending from green balance passives, and we have means of acquiring both of those in those situations. So we can get it on demand with our Resto Heavy, which also gives us resources back. Now right now I have an Absorb Magicka enchant on here, so that if we do need to heavy attack for resources, we get even more off of that. We could actually slot a poison here if we wanted to, instead of using the enchantment. We are going to get plenty of resources back from the Resto Heavy already, and of course some health and the major mending. So you could potentially put a poison there. So I would certainly consider that as a possibility as far as tweaking this build, as far as testing out different things going forward. So yeah, that's where we're at. Now looking at the skills, the front bar's almost the same as what I was using in the previous build video, which incidentally the previous build video was text on the screen and actual videos of combat, whereas this is complete opposite. I have no combat footage, and I'm discussing the build instead, so I found that odd. But anyway, the same burst combo, which is a Deep Fissure with Flame Clinch for the CC, and I did change the ultimate to Dawnbreaker. I think I just like it better. If we can CC them with Flame Clinch, one, we make sure that Deep Fissure hits them full force and they're not blocking, and two, we can easily land the Dawnbreaker on them as well, unless they're especially quick, but we hope they aren't. If we don't have Dawnbreaker up, then our spammable is Force Pulse. And again, like I said, Force Pulse and Flame Clinch both can proc our enchantment, because they're from our weapon that we're using, weapon skills, as well as the light attack weaves that we're getting in between. I tried out the burst combo with these three skills on a target dummy. So you start with Deep Fissure, you can wait about a second, or you can go right into your light attack, and then Flame Clinch, and then light attack and Force Pulse. Ideally you want to get them to land at the same time, so it'd be Deep Fissure, wait a second, then light attack, Flame Clinch, light attack, Force Pulse. That did 41k damage on the target dummy over 2 seconds. Now, on a player, that might only be 10 to 15k, depending on their resistances and such, but you get that up if it gets close. We do have the 11k penetration with the major breach from Fissure. That will also be present on the Force Pulse when it hits, very likely. It's certainly active on the Dawnbreaker when if it hits, if we get use the Dawnbreaker instead of Force Pulse. So we might be 15k or a little bit higher, especially on light armor targets, but and then more for using Dawnbreaker instead of Force Pulse, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of burst potential here, and even if it doesn't kill someone, they'll be low. They'll certainly be in execute range, and more than likely. And then we can, while we don't have an execute, that means they're kind of in that panic mode, because if they're stamina, they're using rally, it's probably nowhere near ready to give them their full heal off of that. So we can just do our Force Pulse, light attack weave, and get that enchantment buff off that light attack, and the damage from Force Pulse. Just be really nice. I like Force Pulse if it's multiple people. That way, if you can get a status effect on one, then we can switch targets and Force Pulse the other opponent, and that does damage to the first opponent with the added effect from Force Pulse. We could also use Crushing Shock instead if we'd like the interrupt. So we could go either way on this morph. It's just whichever one you prefer. But yeah, that's our damage combo there. Also with the Dawnbreaker, using Bird of Prey, of course, for minor berserk and for mobility. And I have Shimmering Shield here in case we fight mag sorks or gank blades, or snipe blades. Not necessarily gank blades, but snipe blades. Or anyone with a range attack. Honestly, there's a lot of classes that use a range ability built in. Even if it's a Magicka class, we'll get there. If they have a Inferno staff, that'll count. So it's a nice way to prevent that range damage and also give us major heroism, which would be, I think it's worth about 15 ultimate in that 6-second period. So that'd be really nice, on top of the ultimate we're already gaining. So it's a good way to sustain our ultimate gain as well as everything else, and protect ourselves from those range attacks. Back bar, race against time. That's to remove snares and roots. We don't really need it for major expedition, and we don't really need it for minor force because, like I said, we are using Malakath, but just to get rid of if we're rooted, essentially. Ice Fortress for the minor protection and the major resolve. Lashing Vines. This will heal us every time we get hit. Once we get our major sorcery active, whoops, okay, jumps up to almost 2,500 and closer to 3K if we have major mending. Now I'm using Enchanted Growth here. Normally I would use Arctic Blast on live, but as we know, Arctic Blast has been nerfed, and so I'm using Enchanted Growth instead. Now, I did look at the tooltips for both of these. Well, as you see, I got Polar Wind here. But Polar Wind and Arctic Blast have the same heal. It's just a question of the secondary effect, which is either a second heal with Polar Wind or the stun with Arctic Blast. But anyway, you can see it's a smaller number than Enchanted Growth. So we do get a bigger heal off of Enchanted Growth, and the cost is about the same. It's actually slightly larger on Enchanted Growth, but what is that, about 200, 230? Anyway, a little bit higher cost, but it does also give us minor intellect and minor endurance, so they'll boost our magic and stamina recovery as well. And we of course have Blue Betty for our sorcery buff, and the Magicka and the every 5-second cleanse. And I'm using Life Giver as the back bar ultimate. I really liked Life Giver. I started using it on my Templar a long time ago, but when you use Life Giver, I think it's a nice way to kind of get back on our front bar if we feel like we're on our back foot on our back bar, just trying to out-heal damage against us, and we're being pressured. We can make sure we cleanse off any defiles with our Blue Betty, and 2, we can activate this and then switch back to front bar, because we are going to be getting a lot of healing off this ability. Now, the problem with Life Givers, it doesn't always go to us. If there's more people around us, if they're grouped with us, it's fine. They can get the heal too if they need it. But if there are ungrouped members around us, then that would be a problem. But one of the things with Life Giver, though, is it automatically casts Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, and Steadfast Ward. Make sure you have those morphed to the morph of your choice. I chose Radiating Regen because that way, if there's people around us, we make sure to get one of those 3 regeneration procs, or whatever you call it. Picked Combat Prayer because if we were running like in a small group or something, we would give our allies Minor Berserk. Could also use the other morph since we already have Minor Berserk in our build, so But we don't have it in back bar, so maybe that'd be useful. I don't know. And I picked Ward Ally again, just to make sure that we got one of the shields. So yeah, if we're using Life Giver, we want to make sure we go ahead and learn and morph all of those to the morph of our choice. That way we can kind of control what's going to happen once we hit that alt. Okay. Leeching Vines is nice if we look at the first Green Malice passive. If we heal ourselves or an ally under 40% health with Green Balance ability, we gain Major Mending for 3 seconds. So like I said, that's an easy way to apply Major Mending. This is something that Thugard told me I should be doing a long time ago. I've finally seen the light on this with my Stamden build. This is proccing every second, basically, if we're in combat. And we're taking damage, of course. So if we do drop below 40% health, once we get the heal off the Leeching Vine, it automatically gives us that Major Mending, and then we can hit a bigger heal like Enchanted Growth to get back that health more quickly. Enchanted Growth, once we have our Major Sorcery and our Major Mending, that jumps up to almost 9k tooltip. Again, it is going to be nerfed in Cyrodiil, but I mean, not nerfed, but Battle Spirit will apply to it in Cyrodiil, but I think it'll be a solid heal still. And it may actually crit, I don't know. Or else we could use Life Giver at that point. Anyway, something else I thought about using potentially, but it would mean giving up the one-piece Scoria and the Malakath, is instead we could try an Asylum Inferno front bar, which means every other cast of our Force Pulse will be guaranteed to give a status effect. All 3 status effects, I believe. I think there's something to be said for that, or at least to be tested for that. And then we'd probably still use Critical Overpower back bar, like I said. So that would be interesting. I might investigate that further. So we would be in 5 Torigs, 5 Heartlands, and then Asylum Inferno staff. Be an interesting alternative. Anyway, hopefully this provided y'all some interesting ideas. Like I said, I think it could work for Magden or Magcrow. I feel like Magcrow with the Blast Bones is so much more clunky, though. I do like Shock a lot better than Blast Bones. At least the Magicka morph. Plus it gives us the major breach from the Shock. So I think this is the ideal scenario for this build. Used to have a build similar to this years ago in my Magplar that my friend Garrett came up with. And he was running with Spinners and Torigs. I think Heartland Conqueror does bring us some interesting scenarios here. Like I said, with the powered back bar, that 18% trait is really nice. I'm excited about that. Just the extra healing it should be able to be providing. And it may be that we want to slot, instead of Leeching Vines, we may want to slot Rapid Regen or something like that. Anyway, so it's there's some different things to try. I do like Leeching Vines, though. The Minor Lifesteal is whatever, but again, the ability to proc Major Mending from our Warden passive off of that, I think, is the big draw, and then using our other heals to get back up to full strength. Anyway, So that's the build. If you have any comments, questions, please add them below. And like I said, hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it. Hopefully I'll find it to be somewhat competitive when it gets down to just trying it out on a live server. Not too many people around PTS these days, and more significantly, no one that wants to remove all their CP just to try out a non-CP combat build. But I've always preferred non-CP since it was an option, and I like making builds for it. So there it is. So y'all have a good day. Thank you for watching. Take care, and then again, let me know if you have any questions or comments. Bye.